Friday. I think we had just a connection issue for just a second, but it looks like we're good now. Like I was saying, happy Friday to everybody. Thanks for being here this afternoon. It has been kind of a busy day for me. I did the Jesse James Beads live at 10 o'clock this morning, and now we're here. We made earrings earlier. We're going to make earrings today. Today we are featuring some Tangerine Swarovski crystal beads. You can still get these from Jesse James Beads. Hi Angie, hi Lynn, hi Debbie. So glad you guys could join us. The Jesse James Beads, over on their website, they do once a month, and this is relatively new with Swarovski. Once a month they do the psychology of color, and so each month a color is featured in the Swarovski beads. And Jesse James Beads has put together these amazing strands of Jesse James Beads and the Swarovski crystals, and you guys know how well Jesse James Beads can put together a strand. So of course these strands are amazing. Well, last month's strands were, Lynn says she will be here till 12:30. That's okay. Hey, at least you're here now. Hey, Sarah. Just talking about you. Last month for Jesse James Beads and Swarovski's Psychology of Color, it was the Tangerine. And Sarah had sent me the Tangerine, and I didn't get a chance to use them in a project for you guys over on Jesse James Beads, but I'm going to use them today because they are absolutely beautiful. I want you guys to check these out. These earrings are super fun and super cool. And there is a link up above where you guys can go and check out the Tangerine beads. Now, again, like I said, that was for last month, for June. This month is actually aquamarine, and that's the project. We did a project this morning using aquamarine. And while I was sitting here, I put together another pair of earrings using the aquamarine. Now, I'm not doing a project with these, but I just wanted to show them to you, just so, well, if it would stop swinging. Look at those little guys. Aren't they cute? Pretty sparkly, pretty crazy. I don't know. They're pretty elegant. I'm all about the sparkle. So just to show you guys, because the Swarovski, here, let me show you guys this guy. This comes in one of the, look at that. This comes in one of the packs, not just on a strand. Like, this is a big guy. This is like, I don't even know how big this is. I'd say about 25, maybe 30 millimeters. That's a decent sized pendant, and it comes with other beads, which is pretty amazing. So that's this month for July, and last month was June, obviously. So we're doing Tangerine, and like I said, June is over, but you can still get these beads. And I'm going to show them to you up close too, again, here in just a second, so you can see them. Isn't that pretty? And then there's this strand. And then in Jesse James fashion, they have the two-tiered mixes. And unfortunately, all I have is the little card because I took mine apart. We're going to pour them out, and I'll show them to you here in just a second. But we're going to make a really cool pair of dangle earrings. Let me show them to you if you did not see the picture. So you can see, just showing off those Tangerine beads that are so pretty. It's perfect color for spring. And Tangerine is like super cheery, you know, it just, I don't know, orange just makes you happy. It's one of those colors. Okay, so enough jibber jabbering, let's get on to it. I'm going to turn you guys around and get my phone out of the way here because you guys don't want to see that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, just like we do over at Jesse James Beads, I just want to show off these strands because they're so pretty. And like I said, we didn't get a chance to use them in a project, so that I don't feel like they got the love that they deserved. It's so beautiful. You can see there's like the little butterflies, and then these teardrop shapes, and then the spacers. There's some little Chinese crystals in between there. Just really beautiful mix of beads. And then these with the little pops of the blue. They're absolutely beautiful. So those are the two strands. And then we have the mini mix that, like I said, I had poured out previously to put these earrings together, and this is what's in there. Now, let's see. Let me move you guys there. It's a little bit better. The lighting has kind of changed. This morning it was so bright in here. now the lighting has changed a little bit, it's starting to cloud up outside. So you guys can see these little guys, these are like little button beads, but they've got holes on either side. I love them. They're flat on the back. So you can actually sew these on to something. If you didn't want to use them in your jewelry, you could, you know, sew these onto your clothes or whatever you've got. And then these drops, there's a lot of drops in here. So there's like the larger drop and the smaller drop, which I love. And then look at these little baby elephants. Aren't they cute? So this is a really beautiful mix. There's just like a lot to choose from as far as shapes, which I absolutely love. These little hematite spacer beads, super cute. So the mixes always give you a really good variety of things. And so that's why I went with the mix as far as making these earrings are concerned. The strands, sometimes I like to just string them just on a single strand and wear them as a bracelet just because they're so, so pretty. But so for this project though, let's talk about what we're going to use. So we're going to use one of these guys. We're going to use 2 of these little cone-shaped beads. And then there is a not a bicone, a teardrop that we're going to use. And we are going to use bicones. We're going to use 2 of the bicones, okay? So those are all the beads that you're going to need for a pair of earrings. Well, for one earring, you're going to have to double that, obviously. But that's still going to leave you a ton of beads. So definitely go check out the mix over on Jesse James Beads. Grab the Tangerine while you're there. Grab the Aquamarine. They are limited edition, so you're going to be one of a very few people who's going to have them. Excuse me. Okay, so let's talk about the earring. Show you the placement of everything here. So for the earring, we're going to make 2 different components. We've got this bottom kind of V shape and then this top V shape. They are both made out of 20 gauge wire, and we are going to use a piece of chain and some smaller pieces of wire in 22 gauge. Okay. And then you're just going to need some head pins and an ear wire. So there's not a whole lot as far as, you know, materials are concerned, but the results are really, really awesome. Hi, Jane. Excuse me, you guys, my allergies are driving me crazy today. Okay, so let's start working on the earrings. What we're going to do is the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the 2 components. And since I had 2 earrings to take the picture, I've got the 2 components here to show you kind of where we're going. Now, if you watched last week, we made this exact same component just on a larger scale and with larger wire. So I'm just going to show you what we did last week, and then you can see it's the exact same component, just smaller. Do you see what I mean? So we're going to make the same kind of moves with our pliers that we did last week. Okay, so what you're going to need is you are going to need 2 pieces of 20 gauge wire. One of these pieces is 3 inches long and the other piece is 2.5 inches long. You cannot make them both 3 inches long, okay? If you do, your earring will hang really weird. That's how I started it out, was with both of them made out of 3 inches, and it just looked funny. So be sure that you've got a shorter piece. Okay, let's start with the larger piece, and we're just going to use our round nose pliers. Now, if you'll remember from last week, I told you guys how important it is for this particular component that you really need to trim off the end of your wire so that you don't have that sharp edge. You want to make that flush as possible. Okay, so be sure you're using your flush cutter to get that nice and smooth right on the end. Okay, so we're going to take our round nose pliers, and we're going to come in just a little bit. I like to make my loops right about there. It's really kind of up to you, but you don't want to make anything bigger than about halfway up your pliers, okay? Because then it's just going to take over your wire. You're going to need a larger piece of wire. Meredith, hi Meredith. She always needs some sparkle. Girl, I got you today. I got sparkle today. Okay, so we've got the wire. We're grabbing it at the kind of the middle of one end. Like here's the middle. We're over here, about 1/4 of an inch up on your pliers. And you're just going to roll back to create your little P shape. Okay? So now we're going to go over here to the other end. We're going to do these like at this exact, well, if I could talk, we're going to do these at the exact same time instead of doing a full end and then another full end, because I feel like some people got kind of confused with the movements last week. Excuse me. Okay, so you guys, I'm losing my voice. Excuse me, so much talking. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing down here on the other end. We're just going to roll our loop. So now when you hold everything out, this is what you've got. Okay, you've got 2 loops coming towards each other on either end. Okay, so now we want to make the larger loop. So we're going to put this into our pliers. Now you can look and see I'm right up against the loop that I just made, and I'm down here at the very base of the pliers at the largest part of the mandrel. Okay, and you're just going to roll back. So you're going to end up with this little kind of scroll work looking thing. I don't even know what you would call that, but it's super cute. Regardless of what you call it, it's cute. So that's one end. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other end. Okay. And again, you want to be sure that you're grabbing with the pliers right up next to that loop. Okay. So now we're just going to roll this way. So when I take the pliers away, this is what I've got. Okay. Now, if you'll notice, this guy is in a V. And in order to make this V shape, I like to use my chain nose pliers to do that. But there's a little bit of a trick to this, because if you put your pliers directly in the center and you bend, depending on which way you're holding them, you're going to be good to go. Like well, you're not really going to be good to go. You're going to hold it in your pliers. You want to move over just like a tiny, tiny hair. Okay, look, I was finding the center. It might be easier if I just do it like this. Okay, so I'm grabbing the wire, finding the center. Okay, but you have to make room for the tip of the pliers when you make your V. So in order to do that and to keep your bend in the center, we want to go just slightly to the side of center. Okay, just a tiny hair. See, that was like not much at all. In fact, that might have been too much. So I'm going to slide over just a little bit. You just want to be a little bit off center so that when you make your bend in your wire, you've given room for the tip of your pliers, and then you take the pliers away and you can go ahead and continue to bend down. And that's what's going to make both of your sides relatively the same length. Okay, but you do have to give that little tiny amount of space, because if you grab it just right in the center, it's going to be off-centered when you make the V. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I hope that that makes sense. So that's as close as it's going to get as far as being even. And you know, when you're wearing the earring, it's just like I've said a million times, nobody's going to notice that they're not perfect, but that's pretty close. Okay, so I'm going to sit this guy to the side. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to make a smaller one. Okay, this guy is going to go on the bottom. We're going to use a 2.5 inch section of 20 gauge wire. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're grabbing that wire right at the end, okay, and just rolling back to make our loop, our little P shape. Okay, now we're going to come to the other end and do the same thing. You just want to be sure that you're going in the same, you're not really going in the same direction. You're going back towards the loop you just made, okay? So they're going to be facing each other. I really am losing my voice. Okay, so I've got these 2 loops, one on either end. Okay, and you'll notice I didn't break the neck or anything on these. Usually when you are making like an eye pin for yourself, you'll make the loop and then you're going to give the wire a little turn to make it straight down here so that it looks like an actual eye pin. We're not doing that. We want those loops to stay exactly like they are. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing coming down here. And one thing I didn't mention before, when we make this larger loop, notice the direction that the loop is going. Okay, look at the direction that that loop's going. The loop is going around towards this way, but when I bend the wire, I'm bending that direction. Okay, so that when I take it off, we've got kind of this, the top of an S sort of shape. Or, well, it is an S. There you go. That's important because if you put this in the pliers just like this, I'm sorry, like this, and you go this direction, this guy's going to be on the wrong side. Okay, so just be sure you flip him around the opposite direction of where you're going to be moving your wire. And mine is going to be a little bit off, but I'll show you what happens when that, what you can do about it when that happens. So we're just going to bend, and now you'll see, look, this guy is twisted just a little bit. That's okay. So to fix the twist, we're just going to clamp down on him with a pair of pliers and then just give it a little turn to flatten it all out, okay? The wire is very forgiving, so don't get discouraged if you mess up the first time. You can either gently coax the wire to the shape that you want it to go, or you can always start over. These are small pieces of wire. Remember, we're only using like a 3-inch piece and a 2.5-inch piece. So you're not going to create a whole lot of waste if you have to do this a couple of times, okay? Okay, now with this one, instead of using the pliers, because there's such a short amount of space here that is straight, I'm going to turn it this direction. I'm not going to use the pliers to coax this into the shape that I want. I'm just going to use my fingers. Now look at this one so you can kind of get an idea. He's got a deep V, but if you'll notice, he's very curved. It's not a sharp bend. So I can very easily accomplish this just by putting pressure on the center of the wire with my first finger and kind of pushing down. See how that V is coming in? I'm just using really soft movements, using my fingers to bend that wire into the shape that I want, okay? I can keep going, make it as deep as you want it to be, or shallow. It's whatever you want. But I do, if I've already made one, I do want to make sure that they look similar, okay? They don't have to be twins, but they're definitely siblings. You want them to be pretty close. This guy needs a little bit more of a bend. There we go. They're pretty close, okay? So now, before we go on with these, one thing that I will mention, this is 20 gauge wire. So this is a smaller gauge wire than the wire that we used last week, which was 18 gauge or let's see, 16 gauge. We used 2 heavy gauges last week. For these in particular, we're using the 20 gauge, which means that you're going to need to work harden this a little bit. You're not going to have to go crazy with it by any means, but I definitely would take both of these components and put them on your block and get your nylon hammer out and work harden these just a little bit, okay? You don't have to go crazy. The 20 gauge is still a good gauge. It's not going to pull out of shape unless you get this earring hooked on something or maybe caught in your hair. But to keep that from happening at all, you definitely want to work harden both sides of this, okay? So I'm not going to do that on both of those. You guys just know to do that, okay? So let's take our little pieces here and lay them out. Okay, so this guy's going to be on the top. This guy's going to be down here in the bottom. Now we're going to connect these 2 pieces with 2 bicones. And we're going to create wrapped loops on either one of these. And then we're going to connect those here in the little curves of the wire, okay? All right, so to do that, we are going to take a smaller piece of wire. This is a 3-inch section of 22 gauge wire. Notice I'm not using 20 gauge to make my wraps. I'm using 22. 22 is pretty much my go-to size as far as any kind of wire wrapping is concerned, especially when it comes to making head pins and eye pins and things of that nature. So this is just a section of wire. There's not anything on it yet. I'm going to come down about an inch, inch and a half with my chain nose pliers. I'm going to bend that wire 90 degrees. Okay. So now I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. I'm going to grab that wire so that it's running between the barrel of the pliers, and I'm going to go up and over. Okay. So that's what we've got. And I'm going to readjust so that I've got the loop. And if you'll notice, this is a really small loop. I tend to do that anyway. I tend to make my loops on the small side. But for this project in particular, you want to be sure that your loops are okay. So now I'm going to put this back on the pliers, bring it over here to my other hand, and I'm going to take another pair of pliers and I'm just going to wrap around about 3 times. Okay. And then there's a little bit of a tail here. I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And I'm also going to move this stuff out of the way. Hopefully the camera will focus a little bit better. Okay, so take that off. And now what you've got is essentially an eye pin, but it has that wrapped top. Okay, we're going to thread on one of these bicones. And now we're just going to repeat that process on the other end. Okay. So I'm going to grab that wire, my chain nose pliers right up against that bead. Very important. You don't want to leave any space there. I'm going to bend that wire 90 degrees. And you can see when I take the pliers away, there's a little bit of space. That's the exact amount of space that we need to place our round nose pliers right back in there. Okay. Same thing, up and over. Adjusting our grip. And all the way around, and I'm going to trade hands. Sylvia, I am using the designer flush cutter from Beadalon to make my flush cuts on the ends of my wire. This is like my go-to cutter tool. It is also a cutter tool that if you if I happen to catch you with this tool in your hands doing anything other than cutting wire with it, it is punishable by death. No, I'm kidding. But it's one of those that, you know, it's a little more on the pricey side, but I love it. And so I take really good care of it. And I threaten the lives of anyone in my house if they use this to cut anything other than wire. Do not cut plastic. Do not cut memory wire. Do not cut paper. I don't care what it is. Don't do it. I like to keep those guys nice and sharp. All right, so I've wrapped around, and now I've got this cute little beaded connector guy. We're going to go ahead and trim off the tail. We want to get as close as we can so that we don't have any sharp edges sticking out. But that's okay if we do, because we can come in with our pliers and just kind of tuck it down. Okay, so now you can see we've got this cute, isn't he cute? All right, so I'm going to sit him to the side for just a second. We're going to do all the connecting all together. So we're going to do one more of those. We're going to take our piece of wire and coming down, just doing the wrapped loop again. This time I'm going to go a little bit faster. Okay, up and over. Now, I am doing all of the wrapping here ahead of time as far as the wire wrapping is concerned. You could, as you were going, instead of going ahead and wrapping the loop closed, you could go ahead and thread this on to the earring. And that's actually what I did the first time I made these earrings. So basically what I'm saying is, before you do any of that wrapping, go ahead and hook your loop onto your earring so that it's already there. That's fine if you want to, but I found that it worked well with the top half, but when I got to the bottom half, I didn't have a whole lot of room to do my wire wrapping. So we're gonna do these ahead of time, and then we're gonna kind of coax the little loops open here. I'll show you, and we'll thread these guys on. Just seems to be a little bit easier to do it this way. Okay. Hi, Steph. We're glad you could join us. I say us like there's more than one of me, which my family would probably argue that there is. I have several personalities, but I mean us as in the whole group watching. Welcome, welcome. We're glad you're here with us. All right. So there's that guy. And you can see I sped through that pretty quick because you guys already saw me do that once. All right, trimming off. Just want to double check everything, make sure there's nothing sticking out that's going to poke anybody. Everything looks pretty good. Okay, so now the job here is to get these guys connected, okay? Now, like I was saying before, you could have went ahead and wire wrapped this guy to this guy all in one step, but I didn't want to do that because it just gets, you just run out of room. So what we're going to do is we're going to very, very gently with our pliers open this loop. And I'm talking very gently, and you only need a tiny little bit of space, okay, to thread this guy on. And I may not have even given myself enough room. There we go, okay. So I thread him onto the loop, and I'm going to bring him all the way down. Okay, now I'm going to close this loop back. And I've already work hardened, so it does take a little bit of effort to get that open. You want to be really careful that you don't pull your wire out of shape. Okay, but it is going to take a little extra effort if you've already done your work hardening. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. You can just very gently open that loop up. I'm going to thread the other one on. Okay, pushing on my wire back into shape. And close that back up. Now, you can put this back on your block and work harden some more. Since we opened those loops and kind of moved the wire a little bit, you can put this back on your block. But now that you've got the beads on it, you want to just be sure that your beads are hanging off the edge of your block before you start to hammer it, okay, so that you don't crack your beads, okay? All right, so we're going to do the same thing down here. Very gently, we're going to open these loops one at a time and thread the other end on. And you can get these crooked. If you do, I'll show you how to fix it. So this one's going to go on just fine, no problems. Just going to close that loop back up. Okay, now this one is the one that it may get threaded on there upside down. I'll show you if that happens. You just open it back up and thread it again. Because when you thread it on there, you think you're holding it the right direction, but then you end up, it's really not. See how I've threaded it and now it won't lay flat? It's because I thread it on facing the wrong direction. So I'm glad that happened so that you guys could see what I was talking about. So when that happens, you just want to thread it off of there and just flip the bead over and go from the other direction. Okay. And now you'll see, well, if I could hold on to it. Now you can see it's going to lay nice and flat. Okay. It's just that one bead. For some reason, you think you're going the right way, and then you get him all turned around through those curves, and he's going the wrong direction. So, all right. So there's that. Now we're pretty close to being done here. The only thing we're going to add a very small section of chain, and I have no idea what happened to the chain. Let's see. Okay, so this happened to me earlier, and I just think it's too funny not to share with you guys. So I have on a bracelet, and the clasp is magnetic, and I lost my piece of chain earlier in the last video that I did, and I've lost this piece of chain too, but not really, because it's just stuck to me. It's just magnetized, and a jump ring. You know, I just have things stuck to my jewelry here, so here's our little piece of chain that I thought I lost, but was really just stuck to me. So we're using a really small amount of chain. I'm using Figaro chain. It's, I don't think this is quite medium, but it's bigger than the smallest that I've seen, but it's got the links in between, but then it has these oval links that are in it as well. So I'm using a section that is 2 ovals and the smaller links in between. You can use whatever kind of chain you want here, but that's what we're going to use. And let's see, we're also going to add some beaded dangles. So let's go ahead and do that before we attach our chain. I am going to set that to the side though, because we are going to attach our little dangly guys to it. Okay, so this guy is going to be attached with a jump ring, so we don't have to do anything with him. I'm going to sit him to the side. But now both of these, or not both of these, all 3 of these rather, we're going to put these on head pins. And we're going to do just regular plain loops. We're not doing wrapped loops or anything special with these. Okay, so we're just going to do simple loops. So I've thread this guy onto a head pin. I'm going to hold that bead between my fingers, and I'm just bending that wire 90 degrees. Okay, and you can do this with your chain nose pliers if you want to make that bend. Now I'm going to come in with my cutter tool. I'm leaving myself a little more than 1/4 of an inch. Okay, we're getting close to about 1/2 an inch here, but not quite. It's not an exact measurement. We're just going to cut that off, and then we're going to come in with our round nose pliers, grab that wire, and now we're going to roll back towards the bead. And that's going to create our closed loop. Okay, there's that guy. And we're going to do the same thing to these two little cone-shaped beads. Now, the reason that I'm not doing wrapped loops here, you certainly can if you want to, but I just wanted to kind of keep the extra wire to a minimum, if that makes any sense. Like, we've already got a lot of wire going on, and sometimes when you do wrapped loops, you're adding extra texture and extra visual wire that I just don't want. Okay, so I'm coming in, and you notice I used the pliers to make that 90-degree bend instead of my fingers that time, just to show you two ways you can do it. Okay, trimming that off, coming in with the round nose pliers, and roll back, and there's my closed loop. Got one more to do. Grabbing that wire right at the top of the bead and just giving it a bend. Okay, trim that off. Okay, and rolling it back to make my loop. That one's not quite closed. There you go. All right, so now let's put everything together, okay? There's our earring, and I'm going to show you the placement of everything. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this little guy that's got the holes on either end. We're only going to use one set of the holes. We're going to take a 4mm jump ring, and we're going to thread that on. Okay, and then all I want to do is just hook this to that bottom V, and then close my jump ring back. So that guy is going to hang down here at the bottom, and we're going to do the same thing with these guys. We're going to open these up, and we're going to put them down here. I'm not going to attach these to these loops. I'm going to attach them beside the loops, and the reason being is because I want all the beads to be shown. If I attach it to this loop, it's going to lay right up on top of this guy, and maybe even across the side of him a little bit. It's just too close, and I don't want that. I want all of these beads to have their own little featured moment in this piece. So I will show you hooking this guy on. You can see when I hold it up, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so you see this guy, he's not hanging from that loop. He's just hanging right next to it. Okay, so when it's hanging up and down, he's got plenty of space to do his own little thing. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. It's going on the other side. And then the last thing we're going to do is attach our last dangle and our chain and our ear wire, and that's kind of all a combined little step. So there's all of that. The bottom stuff is ready to go. Okay. Now I'm going to open this guy, and we're going to thread him on to the end of our chain piece. Our chain piece is about 1 inch long. I didn't have an exact measurement on that. So any of the chain that you're using for this, it doesn't matter if you use the exact same chain that I do, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. You can get away with an extra 1/2 inch. If you want, it's just going to make your bead hang further down. Okay. All right. So now to connect the wire to the earring, we're going to use our ear wire to connect everything. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open the ear wire up. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to thread on the end of the chain. Okay. And then I'm going to thread on my earring piece. Okay, so it's all thread on. There's no extra jump ring here. Close that back, and you have got yourself a cutie. I say cute, but these are more like elegant, I guess. I don't know. Just a beautiful pair. The light is so bad here, you guys. I'm sorry. A beautiful pair of earrings featuring those awesome tangerine colored Swarovski beads and other beads from the Jesse James Beads site. You guys, you need to go check those out. Super, super cool. Great pair of earrings that I would definitely rock with a pair of blue jeans. I don't know about you guys, but I'm all about it. I wouldn't have to save these for a special occasion. All right, gonna flip you around. And I'm gonna hold one of these up. Hi guys. I'm gonna hold one up to my ear so you can see. I'm gonna take this off. Actually, I'll just go ahead and put it on so you can see it. These guys are super, super, look how pretty. I got bit by a mosquito. Don't look at that, but look. Aren't they pretty? Very, very different. Something that not everybody obviously is gonna have unless they're watching our projects here. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun making those. I really, really love them. I love those tangerine Swarovski beads. Go check those out over at Jesse James Beads. There's a link in the top of this video, so you can go straight over there to that collection. That was for June. The July collection is the aquamarine. Lots of really beautiful stuff. Jesse James Beads, they know what they're doing, you guys. Pretty awesome stuff. There's also a sale going on, 30% off of the red, white, and blue collection, so check that out as well. And that's it for me. I'm really, really glad that everybody joined me today. I know that a lot of people are on holiday today. Yesterday was the 4th of July. It's kind of a long weekend, so I wasn't sure who was going to be here, but thank you for joining me. Can you list the beads again? I will. You know what, Jane? I will pop a link in as soon as I'm done here. I'll pop a link in so you can go straight over to those beads and get those. Yeah, that's it for me, you guys. I hope you're enjoying your holiday weekend. If not, it's almost 5 o'clock. Just a couple more hours. If you're still working, just a few more hours to go, and you guys can enjoy your weekend. And I will see you guys again here next week at 1 p.m. on Friday, 5 p.m. over on the Jesse James Beads Facebook page on Thursday. So you get 2 projects from me a week, which is kind of cool. Thank you for joining me. You guys have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Bye, guys.